Daniel Craig is my favourite James Bond. I've seen pretty much all of the over 20 Bond films there are, and none of them have ever impressed me as much as Casino Royale, which today remains as one of my all-time favourite films. So the last film of my favourite Bond was always going to be a pretty big moment for me. Sadly though, as much as it's a fitting end to the Craig era, No Time to Die just has too many issues to ever be considered as highly as Casino Royale. The film is still for the most part pretty good, however. All of the action sequences are really well done and exciting, which is par for the course with a modern James Bond film. There's a lot of fantastic set pieces throughout the film, but the highlight is the prologue before the classic opening credits roll. The film is very long, with an almost 3-hour runtime, but it never felt like that simply due to the high-octane pace No Time to Die has. There really never is a dull moment. What's more is that all of this action is shot beautifully. The cinematography on display in No Time to Die is impeccable, with every shot bursting with all different varieties of colour. Stunning locations like Italy and Norway are made all the more majestic through the lens of this film. I swear that I've never seen Daniel Craig's eyes so blue before. The film also sounds great. Hans Zimmer does the score here and he's on form as ever. There's a lot of great music throughout, though I'll admit that Zimmer may be phoning it in a bit with this soundtrack. A lot of the music is based off of cues from previous Bond films, which are great, don't get me wrong, but more criminally, some of the miscellaneous action music tracks sound eerily similar to tunes I've heard in The Dark Knight. Daniel Craig himself is great. You can tell watching him that he knows this is his last film. He's very confident in the action scenes and he seems like he's having as much fun as he did when he made Casino Royale. Though this film does have its big problems that we'll get into, he still further cements himself as being one of the best actors to portray the iconic British spy. Rami Malek was a big reason I was quite excited for No Time to Die. Mr. Robot is one of my favourite ever TV shows, and one of the main reasons for that is because of Malek's phenomenal performance in that show. As such, he's one of my favourite actors working, and I'm one of the few people that thought he actually deserved his Oscar for Bohemian Rhapsody. Sadly though, his villain Safin is a bit of a disappointment. The character is barely in the film. He has about 4 scenes, all of which are in the trailers. Of course, in all of these moments Malek's performance is outstanding, but we're not shown enough of Safin to make him feel compelling or threatening. His mask seems to be just there to hide his nonsensical age in a flashback, rather than to have any sort of meaning to the character. It's sad because Safin has got a ton of potential, but just isn't developed enough to become as iconic as Mads Mikkelsen's Le Chiffre. Underdevelopment is regrettably a running theme throughout No Time to Die. The story isn't massively complex for a film that lasts longer than any other Bond film. Ironically, time could have been spent more wisely on developing Safin's character instead of the myriad of reasonably pointless characters that fill up the cast. Ana de Armas, for example, is in the film for one scene essentially, and doesn't add that much to the plot. Lashana Lynch's Nomi, while being quite entertaining, feels pretty tacked on and could probably have been easily replaced by Moneypenny. What's more is that the plot feels a bit like there's something missing at its heart. With a slight spoiler warning, the main threat of the story is a man-made virus, and it does seem a bit like the studios may have gotten cold feet given the events of the last year or so and cut down on the references to this threat. It's saddening when studios are often too scared to be poignant or relevant in case of any form of negative press. The plot also relies quite heavily on points from the previous film Spectre. Léa Seydoux's Madeleine Swann is even more important in this than she is in the last. I never really saw the connection between Swann and Bond. Their love in Spectre is very forced, and while their chemistry improves in No Time to Die, I still don't have much investment in them as a couple. A big moan among many I had of Spectre was that at the end, Bond doesn't kill Blofeld, when he had literally no reason not to. Blofeld's presence in No Time to Die further proves why he should have just died in Spectre. The few scenes he has are pretty great, mainly due to Christoph Waltz's sheer talent, but he's fairly pointless and he's gone as soon as he appears. Despite its many flaws, No Time to Die is still a pretty great Bond film. It looks and sounds great and has some moments of really brilliant directing. It's acted well and is a very heartfelt send-off for my favourite James Bond. Unfortunately, the troubled production does seep through and keeps it from being as brilliant as Casino Royale or Skyfall, but I'd sooner watch this again over Spectre or any of the other Roger Moore and Timothy Dalton films. No Time to Die gets a date score of 7. Happy dating, you loners.